In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was dark and empty. Then the Spirit of God moved upon the waters. Day 1. God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw that it was good. Then God divided the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness He called night. This was the first day. Day 2. Then God created the atmosphere, separating the waters into 2 parts. He gathered the moisture in the sky to form clouds. God called this atmosphere heaven. This was the second day. Day 3. Then God said, "Let the waters under the heavens be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the waters which were gathered together He called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let the earth produce grass, seeds, and fruit trees, and let them all reproduce fruit according to their seed." And it was so. And God saw that it was good. This was the third day. Day 4. Then God said, "Let there be lights in the heavens to separate the day from the night, and to ordain seasons, days, and years. And let them be a source of light in the sky, shining upon earth." And it was so. Then God made the sun to rule the day, and the moon and the stars to rule the night. And God saw that it was good. This was the fourth day. Day 5. Then God said, "Let the seas be filled with living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth, across the face of the heavens." So God created great sea creatures, whales, dolphins, and fish of all kinds. And He created birds with feathered wings to fill the sky. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let birds multiply on the earth." This was the 5th day. Day 6. Then God said, "Let the earth produce all kinds of living things, crawling creatures, and animals who will reproduce according to their kind." And so God created everything that lives and creeps on the earth, animals of all kinds, including 4-legged beasts such as cows and horses, lions and bears, monkeys, and even hairy orangutans. God also made the little creatures, like spiders and ants, and buzzing bumblebees. God saw that it was all good. But the animals were not the only thing that God made on day 6. There was one more thing God wanted to do. He said, "Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every animal and everything living on the earth." So man was created in God's own image. He made them male and female, and they were blessed by God. God saw everything that He made was very, very good. This was the 6th day. Day 7. On the 7th day, God had come to the end of His work. He saw that the heavens were completed and the earth was finished. So He rested. God blessed the 7th day and made it a holy day. Of all the creatures and animals that God had made, the serpent was the most clever and crafty. Coming alongside the woman one day, he said, Did God really say not to eat the fruit in the garden? The woman knew what God had said, and she replied, "Oh, we can eat the fruit in the garden, but God said not to eat the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the middle of the garden. That tree is forbidden. We aren't even supposed to touch it. If we do, we will die." The serpent, lying to Eve, said, "You won't die. But God knows if you eat that fruit, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." Eve was intrigued by the words of the serpent and looked at the forbidden fruit. The fruit looked harmless. In fact, it seemed delicious. The more she gazed on it, the more she wanted to taste it. Eve reached out her hand and took a piece of the fruit from the tree and ate it. Then she gave the fruit to Adam, and he ate it too. Suddenly, they knew they were naked. What was happening? They tried to hide their bodies because they were ashamed. What was this new feeling? They found fig leaves and made themselves little garments to hide behind. Then God walked into the garden, as he did every morning and every evening, to talk with Adam and Eve. But this time, Adam and Eve hid themselves from the presence of God. God called to them, "Adam, where are you?" Eventually, Adam replied, "I heard your voice in the garden and I was afraid because I was naked. So I went to hide." Then God said, "Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten the forbidden fruit?" Adam tried to defend himself, saying, "The woman that you gave me, she gave me the fruit of the forbidden tree, and I ate it." Then the Lord God said to the woman, "What have you done?" The woman was also afraid. She blamed the serpent, saying, "Oh, the serpent deceived me, and I ate it." God said to the serpent, "Because you have done this, you are cursed and must crawl on your belly to the woman," he said. "You will suffer when having children." Then to the man he said, "The ground is cursed because of you. You will suffer as you work the ground all the days of your life. There will be thorns and thistles, and you will plow the hard earth. You will have to work very hard for your food. You were made of dust, and back to dust you will return." Then God himself killed an animal and used the animal skins to cover Adam and Eve. But God's heart was broken. He knew that because they had disobeyed him, they could not stay in the Garden of Eden. So he sent them out from Eden to work in the hot sun, to labor as cultivators of the hard earth outside the garden. God placed heavenly angels with a flaming sword at the entrance of the garden to guard the way to the tree of life. After a time, Adam and Eve had a son and called him Cain. Eve knew her son was a gift from the Lord. Sometime later, she had another son. She called him Abel. Abel was a shepherd and enjoyed watching over the sheep, while Cain was a farmer and enjoyed working the ground and growing vegetables. When it was time to give an offering to God, both boys brought something to offer up to God. Cain brought some of his vegetables from his garden and gave them to the Lord. But Abel brought the first and best of all his sheep. The Lord accepted Abel and his offering, but he did not accept Cain and his offering. So Cain was very angry and turned his face away from God. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you so angry? And why have you turned your face away? If you do well and rule over sin, then you will be accepted. But if you don't do well, sin will rule over you." Later, when Cain and Abel went out into the field, Cain rose up and killed his brother. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is Abel, your brother?" Cain lied and said, "I don't know. Is it my job to look after him?" And the Lord said, "Cain, what have you done? Listen, your brother's blood is calling out to me from the ground. It's asking for justice." Then God said to Cain, "You will be homeless, constantly wandering, and the earth will not easily grow what you plant." Cain said to the Lord, "This is too much. I can't stand it. You mean you're driving me away? Where am I going to go? If you are not with me, anyone who finds me will kill me." Then God declared that if anyone killed Cain, their punishment would be 7 times greater than Cain's curse. It was a warning to others not to harm him. So Cain went out from the Lord towards the east and lived in a land called Nod. There he married a woman, and their first son was named Enoch. Adam and Eve must have been very sad after the death of their son Abel. But God comforted them and gave them another son. They called him Seth. He did what was right before God, like his brother Abel. Both sons continued to have children and populated the earth. Some of their descendants were righteous, and some were very wicked. There was a time when everyone, everywhere on the whole earth spoke the same language. Everyone understood each other's words. This made living together, working together, and traveling together very easy. The people wanted to find a better place to settle down and live, so they moved from the east to the west. They found a wide open place, good for building in the land of Shinar, and settled there. And they said to one another, "Come on, let's make bricks and bake them in the fire until they're really strong." So they had hard bricks to use in place of stones and special slime to hold the bricks together. Then they came up with a plan and said, "Hey, let's build a big city and a tall tower that reaches to the sky. We'll make a name for ourselves and be famous. Maybe then we won't be scattered throughout the whole earth." And the Lord came down from heaven to see for himself the city and the tower that the people had built. As God looked at everything that man had built, he said, "Look, all the people are united, and they all speak the same language. This is only the beginning of what they will do. Now nothing that they want to do will be impossible for them. So let's go down to earth and mix up their language so that they can't understand each other." And that's exactly what God did. The people were so confused that they had to quit building the city. They could no longer understand each other or work together. So God scattered them all over the earth. That's why the name of the city was called Babel, which means confusion. Abram lived in a place called Ur of the Chaldees with his father Terah and brothers Nahor and Haran. When Abram and his brother Nahor were old enough, they got married. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai. She was a very beautiful woman. But sadly, Sarai was barren. She couldn't have any children. Terah was a nomad. He moved from place to place. He decided it was time to leave Ur and go to the land of Canaan. So they traveled all together as a family. Abram and Sarai, his father Terah, and his nephew Lot, who was an orphan. They started their journey with the hope of reaching the new land of Canaan. But once they arrived in Haran, they set up camp and settled there instead. While they were there, Abram's father Terah died at the age of 205. God had his eye on Abram, and one day he visited Abram and said, "It's time for you to move on. Go out from your father's house and follow me to a land that I will show you." This was a very special call from God. God had a plan for Abram and also great promises. "I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing to many people. Whoever blesses you, I will bless. Whoever disrespects you, I will curse. All the families of the earth will be blessed because of you, Abram." So Abram went as the Lord had told him to. Abram was 75 years old when he left the land of Haran. He took Sarai and Lot and everything they owned, including all the servants, cows, camels, and sheep that they had gotten in Haran. Together, they all set out to follow God. When they came to the land of Canaan, Abram traveled to a place called Shechem. This land was inhabited by the Canaanites. But God appeared to Abram and said, "I will give this land to your children." Abram believed God and built an altar there to the Lord. Later, there was a time when famine struck the land, and Abram wanted to find food and provision for his family, so he left Canaan and went down to Egypt. Before entering Egypt, he said to Sarai, his wife, "You are very beautiful. I'm afraid that when the Egyptians see you, they will want to kill me, so that they can marry you and keep you. Please say that you are my sister, so that my life will be spared." As Abram predicted, the Egyptians were captivated by Sarai's beauty. When the princes of Pharaoh saw her, they took her into Pharaoh's house and befriended Abram. But God was with Sarai and wanted to protect her, so God struck Pharaoh's house with terrible diseases because he had taken Abram's wife. Pharaoh was afraid when he realized that she was another man's wife. He called Abram and said, "What have you done to me? Why didn't you tell me she was your wife? Go now, take your wife and leave Egypt." So Pharaoh sent them on their way with everything they owned: cows, sheep, camels, and servants. After leaving Pharaoh's house, Abram and Sarai continued their journey, and everywhere they went, God was with them. Abram loved God, and God blessed him. He was a very rich man. He had lots and lots of different herds: cattle, sheep, goats, camels, and donkeys. He also had lots of servants to care for his possessions. God had also blessed him with much silver and gold. After leaving Egypt, Abram traveled back to Bethel with his wife Sarah and nephew Lot. he went back to where he had built an altar to the Lord before his adventures in Egypt. At this altar, Abram worshipped God. By now, Abram and Lot both had so many sheep, goats, and cows that there wasn't enough room for them to live peacefully together. Their shepherds even started fighting. There was not enough space for all those animals to feed in the same fields of grass or to drink from the same wells of water. To make things worse, Abram and Lot weren't the only people in the land. The Canaanites and the Perizzites also lived in the area, and they needed grass and water for their flocks and herds too. Imagine how crowded the land was getting. So Abram said to Lot, "Let's not fight. We don't want to have bad feelings between us because of our animals. We're family." So Abram gave Lot a choice. He said, "There's a lot of land not too far from here. Let's separate, and you can choose first. If you choose to go to the land on the left, then I'll go to the land on the right. But if you take the land on the right, then I will take the land to the left." Lot looked all around. He saw the Jordan Valley and thought it was so beautiful. It looked like the Lord's garden with plenty of water. So Lot chose to go towards the Jordan Valley, while Abram settled in the land of Canaan. Lot traveled to the east with his cattle, sheep, goats, camels, and donkeys. He ended up right next to a city called Sodom. The people of Sodom were very proud, lazy, and wicked. God saw that they weren't merciful. Even though they had plenty for themselves, they wouldn't share with anyone who was poor. They thought only about their own happiness and not about doing what was right according to God. After Lot left, the Lord spoke to Abram again. God reminded Abram of the great promises he had given him before. God said, "Now look all around you to the north, south, east, and west. I will give you all this land as far as you can see. It will be for you and for your children forever." God promised Abram that he would have many, many children throughout the ages. He would have so many children that no one would be able to count all of them, just like no one can count the dust on the earth. God commanded Abram, "Go and walk around on the land that you see, for I am going to give it all to you." So Abram obeyed God and moved his tent to Hebron. There he built another altar to the Lord. And God changed his name from Abram, which means exalted father, to Abraham, meaning father of a multitude. This was because Abraham would have so many children throughout the ages of history. After some time, Lot and his family moved into the city of Sodom. One evening, while Lot was sitting at the city gate, 2 angels came to Sodom. When Lot saw them, he didn't know they were angels, but he sensed that somehow they were great men. So he got up to meet them, and out of respect bowed himself to welcome them. "Oh," he said, "my lords, please come home with me. Eat at my house and stay the night. You can continue your journey early in the morning." But they said, "No, that's all right. We will spend the night in the town square." But Lot knew the city could be very dangerous at night, so he urged them to come with him. Finally, they agreed, and Lot prepared a special meal for them before they went to bed. But before they could fall asleep, men from all over the city of Sodom surrounded the house. Now the men of Sodom were very wicked. They began shouting at Lot, "Where are those two men who came home with you tonight? Bring them out here. We want to get our hands on them." Lot went outside to talk to them and said, No, my brothers. Don't act so wickedly. Please, don't hurt these men. They are visitors in my house, under my protection. But the wicked men said, "Get out of our way." Then the leader of the mob said, "This man Lot is not one of us. He came here as a foreigner too, and now he thinks he has the right to tell us what to do." Then they were very, very angry with Lot and shouted, "Now we're gonna hurt you, even worse than we would have hurt them." Suddenly, they rushed towards Lot and aggressively pushed him until they were close enough to break down the door. At that moment, the angels reached out, pulled Lot back into the house, and shut the doors. As the men continued pushing and banging on the door, the angels showed the mighty power of God. They struck the mob with blindness. Since the mob could no longer see, they became tired and frustrated. After a while, they turned and groped their way home, stumbling and tripping as they went. Then the two angels said to Lot, "Who lives in this house with you? Do you have any other relatives in the city? Hurry and get them all out of here. We've been sent to destroy Sodom. The sin in this city is so great, its noise has reached heaven. The Lord has heard the cry of many, demanding that he send judgment. So God has sent us to destroy the city." Then Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law. He said, Hurry, get out of this place because the Lord is about to destroy the city." But his sons-in-law didn't believe him. Instead, they mocked him. The next day, before the sun came up, the angels told Lot to hurry, saying, "Get going. Take your wife and your 2 daughters who are with you, or else you will be destroyed when the city is judged." When Lot hesitated, the angels grabbed his hand and the hands of his wife and 2 daughters and started to lead them away to a spot just outside the city. They said to Lot and his family, "Run for your lives! Don't wish to go back! Don't even look back! Don't stop until you get to the mountains, or you will be destroyed." The Lord was being merciful to them by warning them about what was coming. But Lot said to them, "No, please, sir. You have shown mercy to me and great kindness by saving my life, but I can't escape all the way to the mountains. I am so afraid that this disaster will catch up to me and I'll die. Look, Zor, that little town over there. It's close enough to escape to. Can I go there instead? Then my life will be saved." The angels gave him permission, saying, "Very well, I will grant you your request and not destroy Zoar. Run quickly, for I cannot do anything until you are safe." The sun had just come up as Lot reached Zoar. At that moment, sulfur and fire came down from the sky like rain on Sodom and Gomorrah. Everything in the region was burned up. All the people, animals, cities, trees, and plants were lost. Even worse for Lot, his wife disobeyed and looked back. She was instantly turned into a pillar of salt. That same morning, Abraham got up early and looked towards the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. There he saw the smoke rising from the burnt land, just like smoke from a great furnace. God had destroyed those wicked cities just as he said he would do. But God was faithful to his friend Abraham and honored him by saving Lot from destruction. Abraham and Sarah continued to follow God. Although they had no permanent home, they trusted Him to lead them. God trusted them too. He knew Abraham would teach his family to follow God's ways, so He made Abraham great promises. One of those promises was that God would give them children. When the time was right, Sarah had a son. This was a miracle for Abraham and Sarah. At the time their son was born, Abraham was 100 years old. They named their son Isaac, which means laughter, because he brought them great joy. Sarah said, "God has made me laugh, and now everyone who hears my story will laugh too." She was amazed at what God had done for them. Who would believe that a woman in her 90s would be a mother for the very first time? Although Isaac brought them much joy, some people were jealous and unkind towards Isaac and Sarah. At Isaac's first feast, Sarah saw Ishmael, the son of Hagar, the Egyptian servant, making fun of Isaac. Sarah was very upset and realized that Hagar and Ishmael would have to go. Sarah said to her husband Abraham, "Send them away, this slave and her son. We cannot allow the son of a slave to be heir with my son Isaac." This was very difficult for Abraham. Ishmael was his son too. But God said to Abraham, "Don't be upset about Hagar and Ishmael. Don't worry about what will happen to them. Listen to Sarah and follow her advice. I have chosen Isaac as the son of promise. But as for Ishmael, I will make him a great nation because he is also your son." Very early the next morning, Abraham took bread and water and gave it to Hagar, putting it on her shoulder. Then he hugged and kissed his son Ishmael for the last time. He said goodbye and sent them away. Hagar wandered in the hot, dry desert of Beersheba. They were hungry, thirsty, and alone. When they had finished drinking all the water, Hagar put her son under one of the desert bushes, hoping to shield him from the hot sun. Desperate and feeling alone, she walked a long way from him and started to cry. "I cannot bear to watch my son die of thirst." God heard the voice of the boy and sent an angel from heaven. The angel appeared to Hagar and spoke to her, saying, "What's the matter, Hagar? Don't be afraid. God has heard your son's voice. Get up and lift him up too. Encourage him, because I will make him a great nation." At that moment, God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. As she ran to fill her bottle with water, she thought to herself, "We won't die after all." She smiled as she gave her son water to drink. God was with Ishmael, and he grew up in the wilderness and became an expert with the bow and arrow. He learned all the skills he needed to live in the desert. When he grew up, his mother found him a woman to marry from the land of Egypt. Together they became a great nation, just as God had said. It came to pass while Abraham was dwelling in Beersheba with his family that God tested him. He said to Abraham, "I want you to take your son Isaac, whom you love so much, and offer him to me on one of the mountains which I will show you, in the land of Moriah." Oh, this must have made Abraham very sad. He loved his son, but he loved God even more and wanted to obey him. So early the next morning, Abraham got up and saddled his donkey. He took his son Isaac and 2 of his young servants with him. After he had cut the wood for the burnt offering, he started the long journey to the land of Moriah. On the 3rd day, the Lord led him to the mountain where he was supposed to build the altar. At the foot of the mountains, Abraham said to his servants, "You 2 stay here with the donkey while my son and I go up the mountain. We'll be back when we are done worshiping." Isaac carried the wood for the offering, and Abraham carried the fire pot and the knife in his hand. As the 2 of them climbed the mountain together, Isaac was very puzzled. He said to his father, "Dad, we have the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham replied, "Don't worry, Isaac. God will provide a lamb." When they came to the right place, Abraham built an altar to God. Placing the wood on the altar, he got everything ready for the sacrifice. Then, to Isaac's surprise, Abraham tied up his own son and placed him on the altar. What must have been running through Isaac's mind when he realized that he was the sacrifice? As Abraham took the knife, preparing to kill his son, Isaac, suddenly a voice from heaven said, "Abraham! Abraham!" As he heard his name, Abraham responded, "Here I am." The voice continued with urgency, "Do not hurt Isaac in any way, for now I know that you love and fear God more than anything or anyone else, for you were willing to give your dearest son to me." Then Abraham looked behind him and saw a ram caught in the bushes by its horns. So he went over and got the ram and offered it as a sacrifice instead of Isaac. Abraham called the name of that place Jehovah-Jireh, which means God provides. After this, God spoke again to Abraham and gave him a wonderful promise. "Because you have obeyed me, I will bless you for sure. I will give you so many children that no one will be able to count them, just like the stars in the sky and the grains of sand on the seashore. Because of you, all the people of the earth will be blessed." Then Abraham and Isaac came down from the mountain to return home to Beersheba. We can only imagine how they told of their experience on the mountain that day, with a mixture of joy and wonder. When Abraham and Sarah were very old, they came to Hebron. There, Sarah died when she was 127 years old. Abraham and Isaac were very sad, but were comforted by God's promises. They continued living in Canaan, the land God had promised them. One day, Abraham saw that his son was growing up and needed to get married. So Abraham called his greatest servant, Eliezer, and said, "Eliezer, make me a promise before God to find a wife for my son Isaac. Promise me that you will travel back to my people to find her. Please give me your word that you won't choose a bride from any of the women here." Then Eliezer said to his master, "What if the woman doesn't want to come with me? Should I take Isaac to her?" But Abraham replied, "No. The Lord of heaven and earth has promised to give this land to my children.
He will send his angel to my relatives to prepare the way for you. If she refuses to come, then you are released from your promise."
So Eliezer obeyed and took 10 camels, special gifts, and a band of men. They all traveled to the city of Nahor. They arrived in the evening, the time when the women of the city came out to draw water. So Eliezer made the camels kneel down by the well, and he prayed,
"O Lord God of my master Abraham, please show your love to him and help me find a wife for Isaac today."
Eliezer was standing by the well, so he asked God for a sign, saying,
"I'll ask one of the women if she will drop some water for me to drink. If she's the right one for Isaac, would you let her say yes? And I will draw water for your camels too?"
Before he had finished praying, a beautiful woman came out to draw water. Her name was Rebekah. She filled her jar, and as she was leaving, Eliezer ran towards her, saying,
"Please, give me a little water to drink."
She gave him some water, and then said, "I will draw water for your camels too." She quickly ran to the well to get more water. She drew and drew water until all the camels had finished drinking. Eliezer was amazed. He thought,
"This could be the woman for my master."
So he took a gold ring and 2 bracelets and gave them to Rebekah and asked her,
"Whose daughter are you? Is there room in your father's house for us to stay the night?"
She said, "I am Bethuel's daughter and the granddaughter of Nahor, Abraham's brother. Yes, we do have room for you to sleep. There's lodging for your camels too." Then Eliezer bowed his head and worshiped God. Rebekah ran home and told her brother Laban all about Eliezer. When Laban heard Rebekah's story and saw the jewelry, he ran out to meet Eliezer. He invited all of them to his house. When Laban urged them to eat, Eliezer responded,
"I won't eat until I talk to you."
Eliezer told Laban all about his master Abraham and how rich he was, and about his son, Isaac. Then he shared about the promise he made to find Isaac a wife. He asked the family if they would allow Rebekah to be Isaac's wife. Her father and brothers said,
"Yes, this is the Lord's will."
When Eliezer heard their answer, he bowed before the Lord. Then he brought out more gifts for Rebekah, for Laban and Rebekah's mother too. After that, it was time for dinner and bed. When they got up in the morning, Eliezer asked if he could leave that same day. The family was a little sad. Rebekah's brother and mother said,
"Already? Can't Rebekah stay with us a little longer? At least 10 days?
But Eliezer said,
"The Lord has blessed me. Send me to my master now. Don't keep me here any longer."
So they asked Rebekah if she was willing to go with Eliezer that same day. She said, "Yes." Then the family blessed Rebekah and sent her on her way. They packed their camels and rode back to Canaan. When they arrived, Isaac was out in the field praying. He looked up, saw the camels coming, and went to meet them. When Rebekah saw Isaac, she got off her camel and asked Eliezer, "Who is that handsome man coming towards us?" Eliezer said,
"That's my master."
And so it was that Isaac and Rebekah got married. He loved her very much, and she comforted him after his mother's death. Year after year passed. They were happy years for Isaac and Rebekah. Father Abraham had given everything he had to them. It was a joy to have him still living near them until he died at the very old age of 175. But the one thing they desperately wanted and didn't have was children. Isaac remembered the promises of God to Abraham. In order for the promises of God to come true, Isaac and Rebekah had to have children. So Isaac prayed and asked God to give them children. After some years, God answered their prayers. Rebekah became pregnant. She was excited to finally be expecting a baby. But Rebekah was also very troubled. It seemed like there was fighting going on inside of her. So she prayed and asked God why she was feeling this way. He told her that there were 2 nations in her womb. She was going to have twins. They would not be identical twins, but very, very different. One would be stronger than the other, and the younger would rule over the older. When the time came for Rebekah to give birth, she had twin sons. The first boy to arrive was red all over and very hairy. They named him Esau. Quickly after him came his little brother Jacob. With his hand grabbing hold on Esau's heel, Jacob did not delay his arrival as a second-born. Isaac was 60 years old when the twin boys were born. When Esau grew up, he was Isaac's favorite son because he was a skillful hunter who loved to eat fresh meat. Esau was a wild man, impulsive, loud, and loved the open fields. Jacob, very different from his brother, was a quiet man who liked living in tents and taking care of his father's flocks and herds. Jacob was a thinker, a manipulator, and a deceiver. Rebekah loved Jacob and favored him over Esau and taught him how to make delicious meals. One day while Jacob cooked some red lentil stew, Esau came in from the fields, very, very hungry. So Esau said to Jacob,
Give me some of your stew, because I'm starving.
Jacob, because he was always thinking about what he could get, replied,
I won't give you any food, but I will make a trade with you. I'll sell you this stew for your birthright.
Then Esau said,
Look, I'm about to die. What use is the birthright to me?
Pleased with the progress he was making, Jacob added,
Promise me now your birthright for this stew.
So Esau promised Jacob the birthright, ate the stew, and left. And that's how Esau traded away his birthright to his little brother Jacob. By making this poor choice, Esau showed he only lived for the moment and had no respect for the position and privileges of being the firstborn. Isaac and Rebekah had 2 sons, Esau and Jacob. The oldest son, Esau, liked to hunt with his bow and arrow. He was a really good hunter. One day, when Isaac was very old, he thought, I am old, blind, and I don't know how much longer I'm going to live. I want to bless my son Esau. But first, I would like some of that delicious, mouth-watering meat he makes. So he asked Esau to go hunting and get some fresh meat and make it the way he liked it. He told Esau that he would declare a blessing over him after the meal. Rebekah was listening and heard what Isaac said. She wanted Jacob, not Esau, to get the special blessing. So when Esau went out to hunt, Rebekah told Jacob what she had heard.
Then she asked him to quickly bring her 2 goats from their flock. She would prepare the meat just the way that his father liked it. But Jacob wasn't so sure about this idea. He said to his mother, "Esau is a very hairy man, and I am not. My father might feel my arms and know who I really am. Then he would curse me instead of blessing me." But his mother had a plan and sent him to get the goats anyway. She said, "If he does curse you, it'll be my curse, not yours." Well, Jacob obeyed his mother and brought her the baby goats. Rebekah prepared the meat just the way she knew her husband Isaac would like it. Then she turned her attention to getting Jacob to trick his father. She put Esau's best clothes on him and attached goat skins on his hands and neck so that he would feel hairy just like Esau. When he was all dressed up and the food was ready, Jacob went to see his father. When he got there, his father asked, "Who is it?" Jacob lied and said he was Esau and that he had brought him the delicious meal he wanted. Because the voice sounded like Jacob's, Isaac was suspicious. He asked him how he finished hunting so quickly. Jacob answered, "Your God helped me quickly find the prey." Still not convinced, Isaac asked to feel him. His hairy arms felt like Esau's, and his clothes smelled like the fields where Esau usually hunted. Over and over again, Isaac tried to make sure that it was Esau. And over again, Jacob lied and deceived his father. Finally, Isaac ate the meal and gave Jacob the blessing, convinced that he was blessing Esau. Isaac asked God to give food from the earth to his son and water when it was needed. He said that the people would serve his son and nations would bow down to him. Everyone that cursed him would be cursed, and everyone who blessed him would be blessed. As soon as Isaac finished and Jacob had left, Esau came in. He had prepared the delicious, mouth-watering meal his father had asked for. But when he brought it to him, his father was confused and asked, "Who are you?" Esau replied, "I am your oldest son, Esau." Isaac shook with fear, very upset. Who is just here? I ate his meal just before you came in. I blessed him. He will be blessed. All of a sudden, Isaac realized that he had blessed Jacob and not Esau. As soon as Esau heard what had happened, he was so upset. With a loud and bitter voice, he said, "Bless me too, Father! Bless me too!" Isaac was very distressed and said, "Esau, I'm so sorry. Your brother has stolen the blessing by deceiving me." Esau pleaded with his father and asked, "Isn't there a blessing left for me?" But Isaac just sadly shook his head and told him he had blessed Jacob in every way, even making him ruler over all the family. Esau started to cry, and he pleaded with his father, saying, "Isn't there even one blessing left for me?" Then Isaac gave him a small blessing. "You will live by your sword, and you will serve your brother Jacob. When you get tired of serving him, then you will set yourself free." So Esau went out from his father's tent, angry and bitter towards his brother Jacob for stealing the blessing. Trouble was brewing in Isaac and Rebekah's home. Esau, furious with his brother for stealing his blessing, said,
"I'll kill Jacob for what he did to me."
In the tent nearby, Rebekah heard Esau's angry words. Afraid for Jacob, she went looking for him in a hurry. "Jacob, Jacob, your brother Esau wants to kill you. You better leave us now." The fear of losing Jacob was too much for his mother. She loved Jacob very much. She could not think about losing her favorite son. So she said, "Get up, go to my brother Laban in Haran and stay with him for a while." She hoped that over time Esau would forget what Jacob had done to him, and then Jacob could return. Rebekah had just the plan. She would go into Isaac's tent and convince him to send Jacob away with the excuse of looking for a wife. She pleaded with her husband, "I'm not happy with the women around here. None of them love God enough to marry our son Jacob. Oh, Isaac, please send him to my family to find a wife." So Isaac called Jacob and blessed him and said, "You must not take a wife from the Canaanite women. Go to your mother's family and choose a wife from the daughters of your uncle Laban." Then he sent him on his way. So Jacob left his family and started his journey towards Haran. He was all alone and quite afraid. Would his brother follow him? Would he ever see his father and mother again? What was to become of him? The day became night, and Jacob decided to stop and rest. It was a stony place with very little soft grass to lay on. All alone and far from his family's tent and the comforts of home, Jacob took one of the stones and put it under his head and lay down to sleep. There, under the night sky, God gave Jacob a dream. He saw a ladder going up from the earth into the sky. The top of this ladder reached all the way to heaven. Then Jacob saw angels on the ladder coming down to earth and going up again to heaven. At the very top of the ladder stood Almighty God himself. Then God spoke to Jacob from heaven, saying, "I am the Lord, the God of your fathers, Abraham and Isaac. I will give you the land that you are sleeping on right now. It will be yours and your children's forever. Your children through the ages will be many like the dust on the earth. All the families of the earth will be blessed because of you. I am with you, and I will keep you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. And I promise to never leave you. I will stay with you until I have done what I have promised." When Jacob woke up, he said,
God is in this place. I had no idea that he was here. This is awesome. I have seen the door of heaven.
So Jacob gave that place a special name, Bethel, which means God's house. Jacob was comforted to know that he was not alone. God was with him. So very early the next morning, Jacob took the same stone that he had slept on and set it up as a pillar. He wanted to mark the place where God had met with him in a dream. There at the memorial, Jacob worshiped God, declaring that the Lord was his God. Then he declared that place to be forever special, a place of worship where man could meet